Hey guys, just checking in on Wednesday afternoon. Thought I'd share some thoughts about what's going on in spring training and how things are going to play out. As we get closer to the start of the regular season. Right now it seems that the Reds are kind of looking for that fourth and fifth starter. For the most part, everybody that's in contention has pitched very well. Amir Garrett's going to start later today against the Angels. He's been pretty much dominant for the Reds so far in his two starts. Um, Sal Romano pitched very well yesterday. After a tough first outing, Robert Stevenson rebounded very well in his second outing. Um, you know, Liesel Verito Bonilla struggled his last time out pitching in relief. He only threw one inning. I think that generally speaking, he's probably fourth or fifth on the list as far as who the Reds would prefer to give that final and fifth rotation spot to. Uh, Tim Adelman has pitched well. Um, I think that if the Reds could pick right now, though, that they'd prefer to go with someone who has big league service time. And with all due respect to Amir Garrett and Sal Romano, I think that it just comes down to service time and what that will mean for their future. With both of those guys, neither one has big league experience. So if you keep them down for 2 weeks, you get an entire extra year out of them in the future. So, for Amir Garrett, that's going to be his age 31 or 32 season. For Sal, it's going to be his, age 30 season that you would get out of them just by keeping them down for 2 weeks. It's not even 2 full weeks during the 2017 season versus bringing them up at the beginning of the year. And if they pitch well, you're probably not going to send them back down. So despite the fact that I believe both of those guys have pitched very, very well, I think that if you ask the Reds honestly, and they would never give you this answer because they'd get in a lot of trouble with the Players Association if they admitted they were keeping guys down for service time reasons. That they would be honest and say that they would prefer to keep those guys down for that reason, even if it is just for the first 2 weeks of the year. Now, fortunately, the Reds do have options to go with. Cody Reed, Robert Stevenson, Liesel Verito Bonilla, Tim Adelman. Those guys, they've got that service time already, so they're not facing those same kind of issues that you would see with a guy like Amir Garrett or Sal Romano. One of the other interesting things that's going on in spring training for the Reds is that Bronson Arroyo took the mound yesterday in a B game on the backfields. Zach Buchanan of the Cincinnati Enquirer was there. He streamed, I think it was the first 4 innings of the game before his phone died. But he said that he spoke to a scout who was at the game who had Arroyo throwing 83 miles an hour. Now, Arroyo's never been a hard thrower, but that's not going to cut it. He's going to have to add several miles an hour to his fastball over the next couple of weeks for him to have a chance. Success or not, I just can't imagine the Reds giving a spot, much less clearing a 40-man roster spot for a 40-year-old who's throwing, in the low 80s. They've got too many players on the 40-man roster, and they're going to have to make other spots as well, it would seem, to fill out their bench. So unless he takes big steps forward, I'd be really surprised if Arroyo were to make this team. Let's see, what else was there? Oh, yeah, speaking of Zach Buchanan of the Enquirer, I'm so glad the Reds added another writer when John Fay left the Enquirer to join C. Trent. He's provided plenty of good information, specifically minor league wise, this spring. He said he had an article earlier today that I'll link over at the site that had updates on both Dilson Herrera and Nick Travieso, who are both dealing with shoulder issues. Obviously it's a bigger deal for Nick Travieso, who's a pitcher. Obviously, he makes a living with his arm, so you want to keep a closer eye on what's going on with his arm rather than a second baseman, even though this is now the third year in a row that Dilson Herrera's had shoulder problems. But at least at this point, Herrera is able to play. He's getting at bats. He's hitting very well in the spring. Travieso's still working on his throwing program. Probably not likely he's going to begin the season on an active roster in the minor leagues at this point. He's still not throwing off of the mound. So, that gives him, what's the date today? Just a little more than a little less than 4 weeks until the season starts. It's probably not likely that he's going to be able to either join Pensacola or Louisville's rotation, depending on where he was going to go. Um, so be sure to check that article out. Like I said, I'll link to that over on the site. Um, just a heads up for everybody else, not exactly baseball related, but more website related. There's probably going to be some changes at the site towards the end of the month. I'm still kind of working out the details, but I think that it's going to be a big change for the readers specifically. From a business standpoint, I'm probably going to be taking a risk, but I'm hoping that it works out well and can, better the site, not just for me, but for everybody involved. Hopefully, it'll lead to better coverage, but we'll have more on that later in the month. But just a heads up that there are probably going to be some decently significant changes on the site. But I think we're just going to wrap that up for now. I just kind of wanted to throw a quick little video up today. Just kind of tossing around a few things that I've been thinking about as we've gotten a little bit deeper into spring training. If you're not subscribed here on YouTube, I'd appreciate it if you did subscribe. We're going to have, player video interviews, more of these kind of talks. Planning on doing a weekly podcast, video podcast kind of thing, which you've probably seen a few of those. When the season starts, I'm going to really lock down a day each week that I'm going to do those. I think that right now, I'm kind of just going to do them as things kind of develop. Spring training has a bit of a different feel, so things pop up that, I feel deserve to be talked about a little bit more, or sometimes things don't pop up, and so, sometimes it's not, every week, it's every, 8 or 9 days. But if you could subscribe on YouTube, that'd be awesome. You get updates whenever we publish a video. If that's the kind of thing that you're into. I think that's it for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.